I'm gonna show you how to make a really easy pork chop. Tastes phenomenal, it's extra juicy. I'm gonna also teach you how to make some really crispy smashed potatoes and some Brussels sprouts. Very, very tasty dish, perfect for the holidays as well. Salt and pepper this pork chop because we're gonna let it sit out for a while. We're gonna let it absorb these dry seasonings while we make our wet rub for it. Quick trick, makes it a little easier so you don't have to wash your hands so much, is wear some gloves when you do this. Now it's salt and peppered up, we're gonna leave it out on the counter for a while, coming up to room temperature. Now we're making what's essentially a wet rub. It's almost like a mini barbecue sauce, what I'm making. So the idea is gonna be we're gonna sear off the pork chops in a really hot pan, get a nice sear on it. Then we're gonna brush it with this wet rub or sauce or whatever you wanna call it. We're gonna throw it in the oven until it finishes cooking. So I just squeezed in half a lemon. This is some spicy brown mustard. I don't have any Dijon. If I did, I would be using that instead. Some apple cider vinegar is key here. Just a little. Add in neutral oil like avocado oil. That's it for our liquids. Now we're gonna add in some salt. Just a little since we already salt and peppered it. A little pepper as well. Some garlic powder, good amount. Some paprika. Don't go too crazy with the paprika or it's gonna make a really bitter taste to it. Cumin. Oh, I almost just fucked up. That's nutmeg, not yet. A little bit of cumin. Now a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of nutmeg. Just a tiny little pinch or two. And then about a tablespoon of brown sugar. Maybe a little more than a tablespoon. Now if we were to add ketchup to this, it'd really be pretty much all the ingredients you would need for a barbecue sauce, but we're not gonna add that in. So now we're gonna whisk it up nice. See, if we cooked it down and added some ketchup, it'd be the consistency of barbecue sauce, but we're not going that route. As our pork continues to come up to room temperature and absorb that salt and pepper, we've got our little wet rub or our sauce, our marinade, whatever you want to call it, ready to go as well. Now I've been boiling off some water. We're gonna boil some potatoes for 10 minutes or until they're fork tender. I'm gonna start heating up my pan for the pork chop as well. And I've got my oven already heated up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Now I've got some rinsed and quartered Brussels sprouts, which I'm gonna cook off in the pan after I cook off the pork. I set up a nice big sheet pan for the potatoes. I might actually make smashed roasted potatoes, we'll see. And I also put a rack on a small sheet pan for the pork chop after we get a nice sear on it. We're gonna pop it in that oven at 500 until it comes up to temp. Just about been the additional 2 minutes for the potatoes, and I bet they're gonna be pretty good by now. Yeah, so that's pretty good. As long as your fork can go in pretty smoothly, we're good to drain these out. I'm gonna go ahead and drain these potatoes out and get them ready for roasting in the oven. We're simply gonna throw them on the sheet pan. I'm gonna smash them down, make some little smashed potatoes out of these, because it's a little more fun that way, I think. Might not be able to smash down some of these really big potatoes. I probably should have let them go a tiny bit longer. They get a little crispier cooking this way too, because it's a more even cooking surface for the oven. Especially since I got the oven up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit, they should get nice and crispy. To make it a little easier on myself, I'm gonna put some oil in a little container and I'm gonna brush on the oil before I season them up. Because I don't wanna mess up my smashed potatoes by breaking them up and tossing them myself, I don't really have a gentle touch. Now we're gonna hit them with some salt, pepper, and just a little paprika, nothing too wild, but we'll get a nice flavor out of them. Flip them all over and repeat the process. Make sure they're as spaced out as you can. That's why you wanna use a full-size sheet pan. You don't wanna overcrowd the pan. If you want, you can make like a little crema to put on top of these. I don't have the stuff to make it, but that does go well with smashed potatoes. Now these are ready for the oven. Pop these in at 500. Don't even need to set a timer because we're gonna be checking it in a few minutes after we put in our pork chop. This pan's super hot. Key here is to have the pan extra hot, and we wanna make sure we've got our small sheet pan right next to it. Put your oil in, let it smoke off just a little bit. Now we're gonna sear our pork chop. You only want to sear this until it gets a nice brown, crispy crust on it. What I should have actually done first, I kind of messed up, to be honest. You should hit the nice fatty part first. Sorry guys, it's a little hard filming sometimes, focusing on cooking. That's my fault. But we want to do the fatty part first. One, because it takes a while to cook, but also because all this fat is going to start rendering on the pan, and that's the fat that we're going to cook the pork chop in. See how nice and golden brown that's starting to look already? So that's pretty good for what we want. Now we're going to let it sear a little more on this bottom side. Now that's searing in all this extra fat, which is beautiful. That is the fat that we're going to be cooking off our Brussels sprouts in. So make sure you save that. You could also you could make a pan sauce with this pork fat as well. I'm not going to do that because I'm trying to eat a little healthier. While this is going, let's check out our potatoes. Nice. So you can tell the bottoms are starting to get a little crispy already, actually, because it's at a really high heat. It's cooking at 500. Now you probably set your fire alarm off. I can't use the vent because you won't be able to hear me with the vent on. Alright, let's see how we're looking here. Oh yeah, that's looking really nice right now. So we're going to flip it until the other side looks the same. You can take out your little mini sauce that we made and we can start brushing it. Once the other side gets a nice little sear on it, we're going to flip it over and we're going to brush that side as well. This is the good stuff right here. It smells pretty amazing. If you can see it past the smoke, I don't know if you can. We're going to check the bottom side, see how we're looking. Oh yeah, that's looking really nice. So now, we're going to brush this side. Now that both sides of the pork chop have a nice sear to them. Wow, look at that nice, beautiful crust on it. It's looking really delicious. Turn off our heat. Now we're going to transfer it to our sheet pan. Ooh, it's going to be so good. Take this pan off so it doesn't burn. We're going to give a quick temp just to see what we're working with. Oh, fuck. We're going to temp our pork chop closer to the bone, but don't actually hit the bone. So that is actually perfect. It cooked a lot quicker than I thought. So this is 130. It's going to carry on up to 145, which is absolutely beautiful. So we want to check all the fattiest parts of it. I'm going to strain out our pan we just used and try to separate some of these big chunky bits that burnt a little bit so we can use some of that pork fat to cook our Brussels sprouts in. Now we're going to throw the pan back on the stovetop. Now we're left with all this beautiful pork fat. We're going to add a little more oil to the pan. Then we're going to add in our Brussels sprouts, as well as some of our pork fat. I think we're going to add it all. Now let's give a look at our potatoes. Oh yeah, those are looking really good. Let's see. Okay, so our potatoes look really nice and crispy too. But we want them a little crispier. So I'm going to flip them one more time and then throw them back in the oven. Probably smarter to use a spatula, Steve. And by the time these are done cooking, our Brussels sprouts should be done cooking as well. Speaking of. Alright, potatoes back in the oven for just another 2 minutes. Whoa, this is looking really good. I'm going to shut off the heat. We'll let them continue cooking with the heat off until our potatoes are ready to come out. Our timer is just about to go up for the potatoes. And our Brussels sprouts are looking really good. Take out the potatoes. Oh yeah. Turn off my oven. Now we're looking good. We can serve up the food. Potatoes are looking really good. They got a nice crisp on both sides. And our Brussels sprouts, since we cooked them in that pork fat, they got that nice, real nice brown to them. They're going to be really extra delicious. They're going to be really salty and fatty. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe to my channel. You can also sign up to my weekly newsletter down in the description below.